If you've got an interview coming up today or you only have a short space of time to prepare, then I think this course is going to be really helpful for you. Originally called the 17-minute interview preparation crash course, this course is actually more like 28 minutes. I have also incorporated the step 1 and step 2 referred to in this video, which follows after the main video, which is 6 steps to pass your interview. Step 1 talks about how you can use Glassdoor to research questions, and step 2 talks about question prediction. Enjoy. Welcome to Interview Success in 6 Steps. My name's Mike, I'm the founder at Job Ready English. Welcome to this course, and we're going to make it as fast and as actionable as possible. So here's the promise. If you follow the instructions in the course exactly, you will massively improve your interview performance and probably pass. So do not take this course. I highly suggest you do this course. And learning means doing. So watch the videos, use the worksheets and following the instructions. If you don't watch the videos, use the worksheets or follow the methods outlined, you're probably just wasting your time and money and you'll probably see no improvement. That's my promise to you. We're going to go through 6 steps, which is going to cover the interview model, or how 90% of the interviews go, exactly how to spend your time before an interview, and something that I call the RSP method, the 2 methods for the fastest way to research questions, the 3 whys you must know how to answer, using star stories to answer any behavioural and competency questions, and the interview and practice method used by thousands to prepare, pass and speak with confidence. So let's talk about how 90% of interviews go. This is based on my experience of preparing thousands of people for interviews, from graduate all the way up to C-level executive, FTSE 100 companies. They go like this. In first round interview, it's via video, so that's probably going to be higher view. There'll be 5 to 7 questions. There'll be a mixture of motivational and competency questions, i.e. why questions and tell me about a time. You'll get 2 minutes to answer and 1 minute to think. So this is useful to know because then it tells us what we need to do. So if it's going to be a video interview, we need to practice talking on camera. There are going to be 5 to 7 questions. We need to prepare for these most common questions, and it's silly to prepare for more. If we know there are going to be motivational questions, we need to answer the 3 whys. To answer competency questions, we prepare star stories. And to have 2 minutes to answer, we know that our script should be a maximum of 200 words. And then, of course, we need to put all of this into practice. So what is the RSP method? Well, the average time to prepare and submit for your interview is 5 days. That's the average for a company who says you've got 5 days to prepare for your video interview. There's only 3 things to do, hence RSP. Research the questions, prepare your scripts, and practice your answers. Now, here is, in an ideal world, how I would break down the time. 10% should be spent researching, 40% preparing your scripts, and 50% should be spent on practice. So if you had 5 days to prepare, you would spend days 1 and 2 researching and getting your scripts done, and then stop and spend the next 2 or 3 days practicing your answers. It's really important that you follow these percentages. They will maximize your chances of success. So here's an action step, because as I said, learning equals doing. So I want you to answer these questions. How long have you got until your interview? So if that's the case, when are you going to be finished with your research? Today or tomorrow? Book it in, put it in a calendar. When will you finish your scripts? When will you start practicing out loud? I've learned that when you put constraints upon your time and what you're doing, using something called Parkinson's law, where time expands or contracts to the amount of time that you've given to a particular task. So set some timelines, set some deadlines for yourself. Don't move on if this is relevant for you. Make sure you do this, because learning equals doing. Step 3, what are the quickest research principles? So doing this, we will find 90% of the questions you could get asked. We'll use star stories for the rest. In our research, we're going to be on the lookout for whether other candidates have been asked for commercial awareness or technical questions. And a really important principle for the R in RSP is we are narrow and deep in our preparation, not wide and shallow. 5 days really isn't a long time. We can't prepare really good answers for 40 different questions if we're being honest with ourselves. So we actually want to prepare really good answers for 10 questions and rely on the fact that we've got stuff like star stories for if we get questions that we don't know the answer to. So method number one, we use Glassdoor. Glassdoor works 90% of the time. I tend to use it a lot. I've used it with, lots of different companies over the years. If that doesn't work, then we default to method number two, which is question prediction from job descriptions. This is really useful for small companies or those with enough useful entries on Glassdoor. To save you time, there are separate videos to learn each method. So make sure you check out those videos where I walk you through how to use Glassdoor and also how to predict what questions you will get asked based on the job descriptions provided. So really importantly, once our research is complete, we should have a document which tells us what is the format of the interview going to be. Is it going to be video? Is it going to be face-to-face? Is it telephone? And you might have that from your interview invitation. You want a maximum of the 10 most likely questions. Why? Because we're going narrow and deep in our preparation, not broad and shallow. A lot of times this is driven by the fear of, oh my God, what if I get asked this question, I don't know the answer? Here's a newsflash, that's probably going to happen anyway, and it would happen even if you had the 100 most likely questions. So you should by now have a really clear understanding of the process that you have to go through, and you're ready to write your interview scripts. So here's the next action step, because like I said, learning equals doing. So what is the interview format going to be? Have you got up to 10 most likely questions and no more? And what else did you learn about your upcoming interview? Ideally, you're going to have a document which is ready to refer to, because now we're going to be preparing our scripts. So step number 4, the 3 whys you must answer. In every interview you will probably ever get, you're going to be asked why this job and why this company. And we also prepare for why you, because having a really good personal introduction is a fantastic foundation for being able to sell yourself. We're not used to it. We're not used to selling ourselves in everyday life. So if you're watching this and you don't have an interview, this is an excellent opportunity to take note, prepare your why you answer, and then start to practice this on a daily basis. It will be phenomenal preparation for when you get your interview. So why you? Make sure you practice your scripts every day for a solid foundation for any interview. And realistically, you'll probably do this for about 2 weeks. So this is broken down into 7 steps. What are you doing now? What have you done in the last 3 years? What do you want to do next? What about your work experience, your volunteering, extracurricular activities, your skills and interests, and then end with a bang or a curiosity hook. Make sure you check out the worksheet that's part of its course. You can download it as a Word document and then fill it in yourself. So next we have why this job. Everybody gets asked this question. Why do you want to be a financial analyst? Why do you want to be a commercial buyer? Make sure that you use your job description. If it's not helpful, then just go back and use method 2 and step number 3, because I tell you about how to find a really good job description and how to use that job description to pick out, what tasks does a job involve? What would you do day to day? What skills do you need? What experience do you have to prove you have these skills? What training would you get? Use the worksheet. One thing that I really want to emphasize to you is the job description is basically the key to getting the job. They have explained everything that they want, and as long as you can communicate that and demonstrate that, you will probably get the job. It doesn't get more complicated than that. Why this company? Again, this is a question where I see people be really lazy and give really generic answers for this. So we're looking for 5 to 7 facts. You can get this, I would say, within 15 minutes of research. If you've bought this with a past interview pack, then of course you can use your company research note if you have one. So the facts that you're looking to pick out are financials, clients, key events, awards, unique language, which includes things like core values, white papers, industry news, which includes, blogs, general insight from the company's news page, Make sure that you use the worksheet and make sure that your facts are unique. This is really important. Doesn't take a lot for you to research, but I would say 9 out of 10 people completely miss the step and cannot provide a really compelling and specific answer to this question. So next up, we've got star stories. So you could get asked hundreds of different competency or behavioral questions. This is something that I've gotten used to over the years, but with star stories, you can answer any of them with 5 or 6 pre-prepared stories to match almost any skill. And here's an example. So this is a young man who went off to do a senior position at Bloomberg. He had 4 examples, which was his German presentation, a jam company he started, his experience trading cryptocurrency, and also doing an economics presentation at university. And what he did is he figured out that you could use those 4 stories to answer questions for 19 different skills. So for his German presentation, he could ask, tell me about a time when you creatively solved a problem. Tell me about a time when you influenced and motivated somebody. Tell me about a time when you showed initiative. Tell me about a time when you failed to hit a deadline. The only adaptation is basically the actions that he took to demonstrate that skill. To be frankly honest with you, you could use one of our other courses to find out what those skills are, or you could just pop it into Google and figure out what those skills are. What does this mean? It means you can use the same story to answer multiple different questions. Yes, you can use the same story in the same interview, which is a really common myth that people get bogged down by. And also, this completely changes our conception of how we prepare for interviews and saves you a massive amount of time. So make sure that you use the Star Stories worksheet to pick your 5 best star stories, add some details. You'll then match them up with the most common competency questions you could get, and you can also match them against the competency questions that you have done in your research. And then you just add more stories for questions we don't have a story to. So you don't need 10, 20, 30 plus pages of scripts, just a few star stories. And the beautiful thing about this is if you do this once, and you can use them for any interview afterwards, which is absolutely amazing. So here's our action step. Have you done all of your worksheets? Please, this is such an important step when you're preparing your scripts. We spent a lot of time putting together great worksheets, great frameworks for you. Take the time to use the worksheets to prepare. You won't regret it. Time and time again, so we've had thousands of people take our courses, and we see that the people who are successful, who pass interviews, have actually sat there, they've watched all the videos, done all the worksheets. Those who complain or say that it wasn't helpful, or just basically, the vast majority of them buy the course and never look at it, are the ones who just didn't do anything and thought that buying a course would be a magic pill for them being able to pass their interview. It's not. So if you haven't done this, stop this video, make sure you sit down, do the worksheets, and then come back. Step number 6, the most effective practice. So speaking is the most important thing that you can do because that's what you do in an interview. I find it really baffling that people don't spend more time speaking, maybe because they don't like listening to themselves. It makes them feel uncomfortable. They're not confident with their English or presenting themselves. But this is where you really will be able to massively increase your chance of success. So your scripts are done. It's time to practice. What I want you to do is just read your scripts out loud. Record yourself for each question on your phone or computer and watch yourself back. I know I cringe watching back my videos as well, but I do it all the time because you can look to see what you would correct. And the best way I can explain this is when you look in the mirror, sometimes you think, oh my God, I look fantastic. And other times you're like, oh man, I look so tired, or oh, I look like I put on a little bit of weight. Why? Because your brain is a comparison machine. So watching yourself back is so important. Repeat 3 times for each question. Remember, you're just reading out your script and recording yourself. Once you've done that, it's time to move past the script. So now what we want to do is try to move beyond this because reading from a script will make you sound robotic. So shorten your scripts to 5 bullet points each. Practice answering each question again once, but with your bullet points. So now you haven't got the full script. And concentrate on looking at your screen and not the scripts. And again, watch yourself back and see how natural you are, how fluid were you. Do you kind of seem robotic or do you seem genuinely engaged and interested? And tweak your bullet points if you forget anything important. So once you've done this, then we can really level up and get some realistic practice using randomization. So with randomization and actual realistic practice, create a document with all the questions you might get asked and just number them 1 to 20. Then use a random number generator on Google to choose your questions at will. So you just sit there on Google, you randomly generate a number and you have to answer that question. Do that for 7 to 10 questions and then review which questions you didn't feel confident in. You could have a little notepad to the side and be like, oh, question 7, I was awful, or whatever it is. And then repeat until you feel confident with 80% plus of your answers. If you can practice with an actual human, great, who can actually give you solid and useful feedback. That's quite important. Why? Because sometimes we've just got a blind spot. So we've got something that we can't see ourselves. But practicing mock interviews is a really good way to get good fast. It will make you feel super uncomfortable, but you will massively improve as you watch back your videos and you're basically answering off the top of your head. I always say it's a little bit foolish to sit there and try and memorize your scripts. Just speak, do, repeat, review, improve. That's the best way to get better. So your final action step, have you read your answer to each question at least 3 times, recorded and rewatched your video? Have you moved each script to 5 bullet points? Have you practiced a mock interview and do you feel confident with 80% plus of your answers? If that's your case, then you're absolutely ready to crush it. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this course. I wanted to make it as short and as actionable as possible because I know how little time that you have if you bought this course to prepare for your interview and you wanted clear advice and things to get on with. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I wish you the best of luck. See you later. So let's talk about method 1 for finding questions. This works like 90% of the time. I rarely have to rely on method 2, but I put it in there just in case. So we look up Glassdoor plus the company. Today we're going to use Deloitte just because it's easy. Click on the top item, click interviews. Now, of course, for interviews, we really want to see what's most recent. A little tip, interviews don't change that much and they change less the bigger the company because it's really quite an expensive process to change. So you might see it change maybe every 2, 3 years at best. And then what I've done is I've created a separate document, which I've got here. So as I'm going through these, now for Deloitte, there are 20,000 interviews plus. So we probably only need to go back about 6 months, depending on the company. Obviously, if it's much smaller, which is, chances are it is, you might want to go back a year. And all I'm looking for, so you'll see you've got this analyst interview, application interview, interview questions. I'm really just looking for a good explanation of the process and also to start copy and pasting these questions. So this one looks quite good. Doesn't really matter what role it's for, to be frankly honest with you. Obviously, if you're looking as a software engineer, you'd have a different mindset, and I'll start to collect these into a document. This is the most laborious sort of research process. This looks good. You'll notice that I haven't sifted and sorted for the UK yet. So because there are so many, in this particular case, I will click filter because I'm starting to see stuff from other countries which doesn't look so relevant. So I'm going to sift down just for the United Kingdom. Of course, that would be true whatever country you're from and wherever you're watching this from. So now we're down to about 2,000 interviews instead. What are your expectations? Once I kind of have, the first thing I want to figure out is really the format. So 1.5 hours of interview. Okay. Consultant, cyber risk. We're obviously looking for roles. In this case, I'm looking for kind of graduate roles. Video interview with basic questions. Okay, so we're kind of getting the feeling that it's going to be a video interview. Once I sort of know what the format is, so video interview, couple of questions, um, then I start to just concentrate on questions. And anytime I come across a question which is quite technically specific for a different role, I tend to miss it out. So they asked what the bank's guarantee was, what would you do in this situation, how would you behave if you notice a colleague making a mistake during a presentation, why do you want to work for us? I've already seen this question before. And I'm going to go through a couple of these with you because I want to show how we'd use this to then introduce yourself. So now this is for a graduate consultant. How do you do research? Bearing in mind, if you do the hard work now, the rest you'll find quite easy. Why work for this company? So when I start to see repetitions, what I do is I just put an X next to it. So I know that this is coming up. What do you know about Deloitte? Same. Developed a creative way. That doesn't seem as helpful. How could Deloitte be more sustainable? To analyze data from a table. Tell me about yourself. How would you introduce yourself to a senior colleague? So I've seen this already. How would you introduce yourself to the team? The more that you go back, particularly the bigger the company, you'll see the same questions coming up over and over again. And the idea, as we sort of covered before, is really we just want to concentrate on 7, maximum 10 questions that we might get asked because they're statistically much more likely to get asked. That's how you'd use Glassdoor. And like I said to you, it holds true for about 90% of the time. I reckon research, even if it's a massive company, will take you about half an hour to do, but then you're pretty much going to be certain about what you're going to get asked. There you go. Talk about method number 2, which is question prediction from job descriptions. It sounds more complicated than it is, and it's really quite simple. Sometimes you might have a company that you kind of struggle to find anything about in terms of their interview process, or the same for a role. You might have a job description for a role and it's not particularly helpful. And I want to show how you can use a job description to basically kind of predict what questions you're going to get asked. Ultimately, companies are going to ask questions that are related to the company and the role. I'm going to use an example. So this is something that I worked through recently with a client who wants to go into deals advisory in Munich in Germany. So the first thing that he did was he copy and pasted the job description, which comes from LinkedIn, and it's a little bit kind of messy. But you'll see here, companies are always going to say, for example, what you're going to do. So Deloitte calls these exciting tasks that await you, and also what you're going to need, what skills that you're going to need. So we can take this. The rest isn't really that important in a job description. All we want to know is what you're going to do and what skills do you need. So we can take that over into a document, which looks something a little bit like this. Here's one I did earlier. And we can start to think, well, what do all of these things mean individually? So identify new markets and business opportunities for clients. Well, this is about business development. So they might say, have you got any sales experience? Because they're going to ask a question which helps them learn a bit more about business development. Um, Tell me about a time when you analyzed a business, for example, or tell me about your analytical skills. Develop business plans, competitor analysis, and financial business cases for new digital ventures or initiatives. Just business and financial planning. Tell me about your multitasking slash or organizational skills. And we can go through and start to think, well, if this is what you want me to do, what question could you ask me to kind of test whether I could do that? And we can do that for everything. So I put in bullet points like this is in report writing, teamwork, presentations, innovation. So I just need to prepare to answer questions based around those topics. And then we'll have, the skills. So they might say, they wanted relevant experience of working in strategy or management consulting, high pressure startups. Um, have you got any experience of strategy development? So you're just thinking, right, okay, so I need examples and star stories which will come to, which will demonstrate that I have experience in strategy development or business and financial planning. And it's also good to look for bonuses as well. So here they're talking about uh, the ability to speak German and excellent Microsoft Office skills. Now, if you have a job description which is really poor, i.e., you can't pull out this type of information, then I suggest that you use prospects. So prospects is great. I just typed in prospects deal advisor, and we've got some different roles. I love prospects because it's really complete, and it breaks stuff down exactly how we want it. I.e., it talks about your responsibilities, and it will also talk about qualifications and skills that you would need. Again, you don't need to prepare to answer questions about all these skills, but as you're preparing examples, you want to prepare to give stories, examples that match most of these skills. And finally, if you can't find it on prospects, then you just look it up. So, for example, this is for deals advisory jobs, and this role is linked to deals or mergers and acquisitions. So just type in deals advisory jobs. I went and had a look at a job description for a manager at PwC, and they're really explicit here. So they list out essential skills and experiences, desirable skills and experiences, what you'd be doing. So then you could predict your questions based upon this. Again, this isn't a really lengthy process. You could probably have it done in 20 or 30 minutes, and with reasonable accuracy, predict, I would say, 80 to 90% of the questions that you get asked. So that's how we do method 2.